What's up, guys? Here it again, back with another video. And you guys are catching me at the beginning of my work week here. Had a little bit of a slow start to my day intentionally. I ended up parking up at a consignee last night, and I'd kind of been dragging a little bit as far as me being sleepy. I got a little sleepy earlier than I normally would because some stuff that I was doing previously, I was up late into the night, so I was running low on sleep. And that's something, guys, you want to make sure that if you do that, with this kind of job, you can't really work this job effectively and safely when you're sleepy, because you have to operate a huge commercial motor vehicle. You can't really be dozing off or anything like that. So, you want to make sure that you stay up on sleep, or at least have enough sleep so you can function, not worry about, drifting off into la la land or going to sleep. So I ended up camping out a little bit longer than I normally would, instead of being up bright and early, like 30 minutes before the consignee was ready to go up rolling. I said forget it this morning. I slept in for like an extra, I don't know, what was it, like 45 minutes or an hour or something like that. And I woke up naturally on my own. Actually, my alarm went off and I turned it off, and went back to sleep and woke up on my own, and I feel completely refreshed now, so I'll be able to function very well throughout the rest of my day. You need to have that sleep. Don't burn the candle at both ends too frequently or in an unsafe way where you gotta actually seriously be concerned about, falling asleep behind the wheel, nodding off, feeling the truck drift. Don't let that happen to you guys. Aside from that, guys, I am at my shipper for the day. I thought I was doing something, getting here at a good time, relatively early, but I have an appointment here. Now, when I'm doing this stuff, a lot of times we'll have appointment times set on our paperwork or, our load notes. But a lot of the time you get there, a shipper will load you if they're not busy. The appointment time is just, pretty much just for show. A lot of the time, in my experience, you get somewhere earlier than that, they'll take you. But there are some places that are pretty strict on that, and unfortunately I am at one of those places. I got to this place around 11 o'clock, and my appointment is not until 1:20. So I called in to check in at their little guard check office that they got, and they called me back and said that I could call in to get squared away like an hour before my appointment. So I'm sitting here just waiting for like the next I don't know, 50 minutes, something like that, 40 minutes, so I can go up and get here and get unloaded, because I got a long way to go. My delivery is like 9 hours from here, which is, it is what it is. I'll be driving a little bit into the night because of just having to wait here until I can get loaded and then have like the drive to get to where I'm going. It goes that way sometimes, guys. I'm not really pressed. But the place that I'm at, I have a story about it because of the last time that I was here, and I think I'm gonna hold on to that until I'm back in the area where something transpired. I want to tell you guys about it because when I saw that I was coming back to this place, I was like, oh no. But like I said, I'll tell you guys about it a little bit later on in the video. I'm hoping that they will stick to getting me through here earlier than the appointment time, because there's a driver next to me, another company guy, and he said he's been here for a couple hours, 2.5 hours, and he said his appointment was like at 11:30 or something like that, and he's still sitting next to me right now. It's a little bit after that, so hopefully I'm not stuck here lagging behind. I've been to this place a handful of times in the past, so I'm already certain that I'm going to be ended up doing a split log here, which is okay, because I'll probably end up needing that time anyway. The consignee for this place does not have on-site parking, but I already went ahead and did my trip planning, so the place where I'm planning to stop is about an hour away from the consignee, and it's actually a couple of large truck stops. There's like a Pilot and a Petro that are right next to each other, and both of those truck stops have a large quantity of parking spaces. So I'm very confident that I will be able to snag myself a spot regardless of what time I get there. It's in Georgia, so I've been to this set of truck stops a bunch of times. I actually got there, the latest I think I ever parked at that place was like 2 a.m. and there were still like a bunch of spots left available. So I'm not worried about that. A little bit less stress for the workday, not having to worry about when I'm gonna camp out for the night. But I'll check in with you guys in a little bit. Hopefully I will be in the loading bay. Either that, or if something else interesting happens before then, I'll check in with you guys in a bit. But stay tuned for that story though. It's a doozy. Okay, we're loaded now. Actually had to sit around and wait pretty much the whole time. It's like 1:40 now. Waited a little bit after 1:20 before they called me, which is all good, I guess. That was the appointment time, 1:20. So I can't really complain about, you know, having to sit around. Just didn't work out for me this time about it being faster. But on the positive side, once I got back here and got loaded, they loaded me in less than 10 minutes. You know, it's only 3 pieces, extremely fast, and I'm ready to go ahead and go out and start securing this. But before I do, a little bit to the story that I was referencing. I came here, I don't know, some months ago. I don't remember exactly how many. And with this load, there was a note for this one and the last one that this particular type of freight I'm getting cannot get wet. It was in the load notes with exclamation points on it. The load must remain dry, cannot get wet. So of course, when I had to pick it up, it was a day that was raining. Now that normally should not be a problem because the place that I'm in, as you can see, there's an awning here. This awning, you back into this right here. But it still just so happened to be a bad luck day for me. It was a torrential downpour that day, which normally the awning should be able to protect you from something like that. But it was a downpour and the wind was blowing. So the wind was actually blowing the rain diagonally underneath this awning. It was coming in that way. So the deck of my trailer, the back end deck, was getting wet. I mean, you can see this goes in pretty far here. It's pretty deep. But the rain was blowing that hard. And I had actually more pieces. I only had 3 pieces today. I had more freight pieces, maybe like, I don't know, extra 2 or 3 or something, because my freight was like right up here, right around this area. And as you guys can see, this stuff is packaged to protect it from the moisture, but the freight said cannot be wet. So that was a bit of an issue because the wind was blowing the water, the rain, onto my trailer deck, and that front end coil that would have been up here got some water on it, some rain. I mean, because it was bad. It was really bad. I mean, it was so much rain. I don't know what happened, man. The skies opened up because this whole area of the ground was soaked in with water. It was a pool down here. It was so much water that it wasn't getting sucked down that drainage hole. It was bad. And you know what? Let me go ahead and air up the truck here, and I'll continue my story as I'm securing this stuff here. Keep in mind, as I'm telling this story, that awning, keep that in mind, keep that reference in your mind, and this area right here where the truck is parked. Okay, now before I get back to the story, this load is very, very particular. The customer that is receiving it is very, very particular with how they want things done. That plays into the story as well. So, like I said, this freight cannot get wet. Absolutely not. Under no circumstances cannot. Very, very seriously cannot. I don't know how many more times or how many more ways I could say it, but that is the way that it's conveyed to us. So it's so bad that the customer will reject the stuff if it is wet. And I got the impression, I didn't have anybody tell me, but I got the impression that has happened in the past because, well, I'll save it for later on in the story. But this stuff here, this cardboard, if it gets damp, wet, or any kind of way, it changes colors. And I guess, I don't know if that's supposed to be like a tip-off to the customer that it got wet, or if that's just like a precaution, you know, in general, so you know whether or not the coil is potentially damaged. But as you can see, it's wrapped up really well. It's got the coil itself, and this plastic over top of it, and this cardboard over the top of that too. So it cannot get wet. We've got clear skies right now. It was not so much that way this morning, as you can see from that water. It rained when I woke up when I was at the first constantly this morning, and I want to hurry up and get this tarped and secured before it rains here. It doesn't look like it's going to. It's still bright and sunny. Hopefully it stays that way. And another thing, as you guys can see, keep dry. But going back to that awning, that rain was coming down diagonally because of the wind. Let me post you guys up right here. Diagonally because of the wind. And the front of the coil ended up getting wet. So with that being the case, you guys know how I am about wanting to cover myself and make sure that I don't get penalized for anything that I did not cause, which is what I would say every driver needs to do. Cover yourself. Took pictures, and I sent those pictures in to safety, and I called my fleet manager and let him know that, hey, the coil got wet, it's raining out here where I am. And my fleet manager's like, okay, hold on a second. Let me see if you can get them to sign for it and say that the freight got wet because it was raining when they loaded you, and it's going underneath the awning and all that mess that I told you guys before. So I go in there to the shipper and tell them the situation and see if they'll sign for it, you know, notifying that the load was wet because of the weather. The shipper refuses to sign it. So I'm like, okay. I go back to my fleet manager. I'm like, hey, they didn't want to sign for it. So then they're like, okay, let me get back with you real quick. Let me get with safety, get back with you. So safety contacts me and they're like, hey, can you take some pictures? Which I already skipped ahead of that part, but they asked for the pictures for me to send them, and pictures of the awning, because I explained that situation to them as well. Pictures of where the truck is sitting when it got loaded. Pictures of the awning, and I showed them the huge, basically pond that formed from all that rainwater in that loading area. Safety's like, okay, sit tight. We'll get back with you. So I'm already at this point knowing, oh man, this isn't good. Not thinking that I'm in trouble, but I'm thinking, oh man, with their emails going between departments and people saying, let me get back to you, that means there's gonna be some kind of problem. There's gonna be some kind of problem that's gonna end up costing me time, because I'm just, at this moment, the unfortunate driver that has this load to deal with at the moment. So I'm like, okay, I'm sitting there just waiting. I don't know how much time went by, if it was like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, something to that effect. Safety manager calls me back and they're like, okay, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and have you get that load unloaded, tell the shipper to take it off the trailer, and we're gonna go ahead and send you somewhere else to pick up. I'm like, oh, I'm just like, oh my God, come on. Because at this point in time, when that was taking place, it was later on in the afternoon. I believe it was around like 4 or 5 something when I had been placed into the bay to get loaded and all of that. So I'm like, man, there's no way, because with it being that late, you know, there's no way we're gonna be able to get loaded with something else that same day. So I'm just, you know, I'm not in the best mood because of that. Needless to say, because this area where I'm at, there's not a whole lot of other shippers around. I mean, aside from the fact that it's later on in the evening. You know, I think the closest shipper to where I am at the time, or where I am right now and where I was at the time, was like 3 hours away or something like that, really far. So it was a whole ordeal. So after all that back and forth with dispatch and safety, and I don't know who else they were talking to. If they were talking to the customer service representative, I have no idea. But after all that, they unloaded the freight off my trailer, and I just burned like 3 hours sitting here for a load that I couldn't deliver. And you know, it was a whole thing, a whole ordeal. But the safety manager that I was communicating with at the time ended up reaching out to me while I'm there. They're like, we know that it really sucks, you know, because I was telling them, like, you know, there's barely any moisture on there. There's plastic covering it. You know, the freight itself is not wet, just the plastic on the outside. It's got some, like, usually you could wipe it off, because I'm thinking, like, not wanting to lose that time invested, you know, or the workday by having to leave the freight and go somewhere else with a pre-plan. I'm not wanting to do all that, but it ended up shaking out that way. But the fleet manager's, sorry, not the fleet manager, the safety manager's like, you know, we know it sucks that this happened, but this customer's very particular, and, you know, there's a high likelihood that they would reject the freight for moisture. And, you know, we know it sucks, but you did the right thing by letting us know, getting us involved. And I'm like, well, I mean, that's cool, but, like, you know, I was already in the mindset where I'm like, man, this is trash. But, you know, thinking about it, you know, that was something that was out of my control. Because as irritated and annoyed as I was with that scenario, I could only imagine I would have been even more so in a very, very bad mood, to say the least, if I had taken this freight all the way down to where it was going to deliver, only to have the consignee rejected for the moisture that was on it, if it had left any lingering signs. So maybe I saved myself from having a problem later on, you know, because that freight that got rejected, I don't know what would have happened. I've never had a load rejected because of damage or moisture or anything like that. So I don't know if they would have found another customer that would have wanted it, or if they would have just gone out and tried to, you know, I don't know, take it back to the original shipper. I have no idea, but it is what it is on that, guys. Which is why I think, you know, if you're in a situation similar to that, you're better off just going through the proper channels of it, and just in case something were to come up snake eyes, you know, so it doesn't bite you in the butt. I mean, yeah, I lost out on time with that. And, you know, that day's freight, I mean, we were able to work something out. So, you know, I didn't have a completely wasted day with no money, but, you know, it was a headache. But you're better off just going ahead, sticking to what's on your load notes. That way, if anything does go wrong, nobody can try to pin the blame on you and say you didn't do what you were supposed to do, especially when it's something that was written out in print or on a screen that you're supposed to be monitoring as a professional, like your load notes or a BOL. You know, never allow yourself to be put into a position where somebody can say you did not do your job well, or you weren't being responsible with what you were supposed to be doing. Never allow yourself to be pinned, guys. Getting things done, guys. You know, something I always appreciate, I don't know if you can see him while driving away, but that driver going off in that Conestoga back there, he just drove by and said he watches my channel. I always appreciate anybody who watches my content. You know, I try to make things both entertaining and educational for everybody, and it's always really cool to see, you know, not just you know, people that work at the same company that I do watch my content. You know, that helps people all around, you know, flatbedders, you know, for sure. You know, from time to time I'll encounter people that watch my content, whether they are employees for the same company or they drive for other fleets. It's always really nice. I always appreciate the compliment that people think highly enough of the content that I produce to want to watch it on a regular basis. It's always great. I appreciate everybody that watches. I really mean that. This ratcheting winch bar, guys, I mean, you see me using it on my videos quite a bit. It's probably my most used flatbedder tool that I have, actually. It saves so much time. Makes all the winching that I have to do a lot less of a hassle. Every flatbedder should have a ratcheting winch bar. Save you that time. A lot less movements and strokes with a ratcheting winch bar versus a standard ratcheting winch bar. Don't flatbed without it. If you guys are interested in a ratcheting winch bar for yourselves, I'll leave a link in the description, and I'll put a card in the video. You guys can get one for yourselves. Some of you guys out there that I've run into on the roads at these strippers and consignees, I've seen you using these. You're welcome. A couple of you have walked up to me and told me that you got one of these because of me. I'm telling you, they're awesome. It's a game changer. That's how you know your straps are tight, when they make that sound. We're good to go. Let's check things out. The finished securement product. All right, here we are with the finished securement. We haven't gotten to the tarping yet, but like I told you guys, I had a special note from the consignee, or I guess it's in the load notes, how they specified that they wanted us to load it. They wanted a piece of metal up front, a chain holding the freight back, which, looking at this, that doesn't really make any sense to me, because that chain holds back the skid. That coil is not bolted down to the skid as far as I know. That's just a piece of metal sitting on top of wood. So if the skid is fixed and stopped in one position, the coil can just come forward and slide right off of it, you know, if that's all that's there. So that's what the horseshoe strap is for. Notice how the strap is across the metal itself, across the coil itself right there, holding it back. It's like a seatbelt for the coil, and that's just a seatbelt for the skid, which, you know, in my opinion, doesn't really do a whole lot to stop the freight itself from moving. It holds the skid, but it's not holding the freight. My strap is holding the freight down. And then we have our 3 straps, alternating, like I said, strap, buckle, strap, all the way down to give us an even pull across all 3 of these. And then we have our horseshoe strap in the back as well, to make sure that it's kind of pulling, compressing the rear and the front, squeezing them tight together. So we're all good with the securement elements of it. Now we just got to go ahead and tarp, and I don't think that it's going to rain at all. It's still really, really shiny here, really shiny and bright. But we need to put 2 layers of moisture protection on this. So the plastic that's on its own is not included in my securement. So I'm going to go ahead and put my padded tarp over top of this first, and then I'll go ahead and throw my steel tarp on it. But I've got dunnage outs. We're going to go ahead and use that too to pin down the front and the back of the tarp to seal this 100% from moisture from the top, side, and bottom, so no water gets on the deck and creeps its way up underneath the tarp and touches that freight. So let's go ahead and knock that out, and then we will be finished with this. I know sometimes when it comes to doing things that have a lot of steps like this, where you need to do multiple straps, chains, and double tarp things, I know sometimes it may be tempting to skip a step and not do something and think, you know, who's gonna notice? You know, it's not worth it, guys, if that comes up snake eyes, you know, but who's gonna know? Who's gonna know mindset? Because everybody's gonna know if you screw up or if something goes wrong, if the stuff gets wet. The first thing that happens if something goes wrong is people go through the steps of doing it. Usually whoever the authority figure is, like, they go through the steps of doing it and ask you if you did this, that, the other. Like, well, did you put if you have a load shift, they're gonna be like, hey, did you put forward movement protection on it? If it comes forward on you, did you put forward movement protection on there? Don't let your answer be no. Hey, if it gets wet, hey, did you tarp it? Yes. Did you double tarp it? You know, even if that may not have necessarily saved it from getting wet, you know, the fact that you didn't do it, that'll be the thing that they use to blame you and say that's why things went wrong, because you didn't do everything that you were supposed to be doing on there. So that's why I always aim to be very thorough, and I would encourage any driver out there to be thorough as well. That way you don't have any holes in your game. You don't have any holes in your game, and nobody can ever point the finger at you and say you did not do the best job. You know, and it's not even about necessarily being like some kind of like Boy Scout employee or something like that, Boy Scout, Girl Scout employee. Yep, sorry about that, guys. The camera cut out on me. But like I was saying, it's not about being, you know, a Girl Scout, Boy Scout type of employee where you're, you know, always trying to impress people. But it's about protecting yourself and making sure that, you know, you're not putting yourself in a bad position because you're not doing what you're supposed to do as far as fulfilling your responsibilities and being a professional. You know, you worked yourself into this good position of having a CDL or whatever your job may be. You know, you want to give yourself a high reputation and not infamy for doing things incorrectly. You want to be well regarded, and whenever your name comes up or anybody thinks of you, you want them to think positively and always know that we don't have to second guess this guy. They do things correctly. They're a pro. And also, if there were something to go wrong, you don't have people pointing the finger at you. You want them thinking the opposite. You want them thinking, well, this guy usually does a really good job. So, you know, this crazy story that he just told us about how his freight got damaged or how some crazy scenario happened, yeah, we believe him. You know, it's very outlandish, but we believe him because he's consistent. They're consistent, and they don't mess around. So this person has no reason to lie. We don't think they're lying. That's the kind of way you want people to think of you. That's why you want to make sure you're doing things properly, so you have that good reputation and you don't have to worry about things, hopefully. Hopefully. All right, this is the back end of the tarp. Whole lot of access right here. I'm just going to end up folding it over on top of itself, and then we'll go ahead and put the dunnage over that, because we don't need all of this. I'll probably find one of these stitch lines here and fold it where the stitch is. That way I can use a bungee. I can use a bungee and go ahead and make it nice clean piece right here where I'm ending the tarp. Use the bungees to pull it nice and tight before I put the dunnage over top of it. Yeah, that'll work. Want to make sure we have this set so I don't end up throwing this piece of dunnage or this the straps back here. I don't end up throwing them over top of on the trailer wheels. I want to try to not have a winch over top of a wheel. Give yourself a flat tire like that if you hit a bump and the winch makes contact with the tires. It's likely to happen. All right, that looks good. All right, here we are. Everything is finished. I went ahead and put the dunnage down, like I said previously, to make sure that it's sealed from the front. And I put these bungees here to make sure that this tarp isn't flapping in the wind. Wind resistance like this, that's why you put the bungees up here pulling forward, to try to take some of that slack out of that, and then the dunnage to seal it down. And I prefer to do a full 4-inch strap just because it covers more surface area of the board. I know some guys like to do the 2-inch 2-inch ratchet and strap over top of these, but I always do the 4-inch. And yeah, we just have it sealed down the side. It's pretty enough. It's pretty enough. It doesn't look like a Christmas gift package, super tight tarp job, but there are no holes in it and there's no gaps. It's not gonna get dry. And pin the back down, same way. so I can tighten up, tighten up in the back, tighten up there. But yeah, the last thing I do anytime before I leave, I always check the straps or the chains. I give them all a tug or a pull and make sure I remember to tighten everything down, because sometimes you may absent-mindedly, forget to tighten down a strap enough or a chain. So you always want to check everything. That in addition to, your lights. I don't have my lights on right now, but I'll check that before I drive up out of here. You always want to check. Make sure that you don't have any flat tires before you go, because that has happened. That actually happened to me one time. I made a short about it. I was picking up some steel, and one of my tires was flat. It was one of my dry tires, so I had to have picked up a nail or a bolt in the tire somewhere along the way, and it ended up going flat on me when I was at the shipper. I had to have somebody come over there and swap that tire out. So you always want to look, because you might miss something. You might not get any kind of notification, like a hissing sound, or a dashboard indicator light, something could be wrong or anything. So you want to make sure all your lights are working, your reflective lights, your turn signals, your marker lights, your headlights. You want to make sure all that stuff's good to go before you leave. You definitely want to find out about it yourself, not have DOT have you go through an inspection and they find out, because that's going to cost you money. So you always want to find out yourself, so it'll just cost you a little bit of time and not cost you money. Rocking with the Benson trailer. My favorite. Sarcasm. But we're good to go, guys. I'm going to go ahead and clean myself up and whip up some food real quick, and maybe I'll touch base with you guys one more time before I actually get out of here, because I got a long drive for me. All right, I'm parked now. I ended up parking at a way station in Georgia, not too far past the state line. It's around 9:45, because I'm in the central time zone now. So I mean, I was in the eastern time zone when I woke up this morning, so my body, it feels like 10:45 to me. I don't have a hard deadline delivery time for this load tomorrow. It actually says that it needs to be delivered before 10 p.m. and needless to say, I'll be there long before that. I'm only 3.5 hours away from the consignee right now. But the way that this all works, the earlier that you can get unloaded, the better. There'll be more freight options available. I'll be, higher up on the load board to get one. So I would like to get delivered earlier, or as early as I can. So I might do the 8-hour break if I feel rested enough, and if I have enough time, because I want to make sure that I have enough time to drive all the way there, and then also enough time after that to drive to the next shipper, where I can go ahead and get loaded with my next load, and then do a 2-hour break to get the remainder of my time back, and continue my day that way. So yeah, I just need to go to sleep, guys. Let's just do it like that. I don't want to start tomorrow off burning the candle at both ends, assuming that I do decide to do the 8-hour break and just keep on running after that. I need to go ahead and just get some sleep and not reduce the amount of hours that I'm resting here. So I'll catch up with you guys in the morning, and we'll see if I end up leaving early or just hanging out for the 10-hour break. Good night. Okay, we're here. We made it in time. Actually, well, the time wasn't really an issue. This place receives until 10 p.m. and it is way before that. But it is actually starting to rain right now. It didn't really rain much on my trip here, but I did get held up a bit. I ran into some traffic going through that section of Atlanta. Like I said, it wasn't really traffic because of rush hour or anything. There was actually a pretty bad accident on the highway on my way up there, which that ended up costing me about 1 hour and 15 minutes of time or so, which that goes to my fallback issue of where I was saying if I got held up going through there, with me only having like 2 hours or so, something like that to spare, that would have put me in a bad position, potentially now if I had left with that split log earlier. And man, that rain's starting to pick up. But yeah, 10-hour break did me just right. I've got plenty of time to do whatever else I need to do, wherever they end up sending me after this one. But something else with this, I was gonna start taking some of the securement down, maybe like the dunnage piece, but that tarp's staying on, man. It's raining right now. As you guys can see, I'm actually about to have to put on a raincoat, but it was dry the whole time, but you see those rain droplets hitting the the tarp now, so that tarp's staying on. We're not untarping this until we get underneath that bay right there. This is actually one of the drivers that was at the same location as me yesterday. He got loaded and left before I did, so he's getting his stuff taken care of. But once I get under there, I get this load underneath that bay, I'll go ahead and take the tarp off then. I'm not taking any risk with this stuff, with as particular as this customer can be. But the load held up very well. There should be absolutely no moisture underneath this tarp. Pinned everything down, sealed it. We're good to go. I'm hoping that I do not have to drive somewhere far away to go pick up after this, with it being later in the afternoon again. It's probably gonna be after maybe around 2:30, potentially, when I actually get unloaded, depending on how quickly the consignee unloads the trailer themselves. I only have 3 pieces, but I've been to this place once in the past. It's been years since I was here, but I do remember this lot here. This is actually one of the places that I went to earlier on in my TMC career. I remember coming to this place. It's been since then, like 4 years since I've been with the company. 4 years. Oh man, it's been a long time. But yeah, yep. But we'll go ahead and maybe take a few bungees off. I'll take those dunnage pieces down, and we'll just leave the straps on it until we back the truck up under that bay there, and we'll go from there. I'll check in with you guys in a bit. All right, guys, there you have it. We got unloaded, no problem this time. That was 100% better than the last time that I almost hauled those coils. So I'm happy with it. And I actually have a pre-plan for my pickup, because it is late in the day. It's about 3:30 in the afternoon. So my pickup is actually 2.5 hours away, and it has an appointment time. 2.5 hours away and about 3, maybe 4 hours to deliver after I pick up. So I don't really have a whole lot of time to linger. I'm gonna go ahead and head out of here, guys. Hopefully you never encounter a situation like I did in the story that I told you guys about earlier, the last time that I was dispatched on this stuff. If you do, make sure you go through the proper channels to protect yourself and to keep from having your time wasted. You know, take pictures. Make sure that you read those load notes, whether it's on, your on-board computer in your truck or on your app. Make sure you guys are reading that stuff, whatever company you work for, because I've been with a few different companies as far as in the logistical field in my career, and a lot of drivers get themselves tangled up because they don't read the instructions. They just look at what they're picking up, where they're picking it up from, where it's going, and they don't read the fine print, the things in between the lines, about the specifics of the load. And, you might end up getting bitten on the back end for that. So just protect yourself. Make sure you're staying careful, and make sure you don't have to have your freight offloaded and go through that annoyance. But I appreciate you all watching. Make sure you're hitting that notification bell so you can be notified anytime I drop new videos, so you guys can pick up some new tips, maybe find out a story about something I dealt with in the past like today. And make sure you're subscribing, of course, so you can follow along on my journeys out here on the road. I appreciate you all watching as always. I'll see you further down the road. Figure that out.